everybody? Welcome to Monday Morning Must Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfield, and okay, grab a seat. I know you're probably still excited from that epic week we had last week. It's not too often that you see the S&P and the NASDAQ up on average about 1% per day. Thank you, Jerome Powell, for your comments, which vaulted the markets higher on Wednesday and Thursday, and then all of a sudden, you had Apple, which their earnings weren't that great. They sold off on Thursday night after market. They gapped down on Friday, and the NASDAQ just went ballistic to the upside, even though Apple is 11% of the index. You would think it would have dragged it down, as I did. It caught me off guard. Did not expect that one. One heck of a week. Will we see the same type of action in the upcoming trading week? That I don't know. What I can tell you is there are no earnings that come close to the importance of Apple, but there are a lot of earnings coming out this week. So let's start things there with your earnings calendar. 1,677 companies reporting earnings. That's a ton, my friends. And many of these names you may not have heard of. Well, let's just start off on our Monday. On Monday, you've got Vertex Pharmaceuticals, you have NXP Semiconductors, and Diamondback Energy. Tuesday brings you Gilead Pharmaceuticals, Uber, Oxy Petroleum, Emerson Electric, and D.R. Horton. On Wednesday, you've got the big one, I think, for the week. That's going to be Disney reporting earnings. You have Honda Motor Corp, Biogen, and Adidas. Thursday brings you AstraZeneca, Sony, and the Trade Desk. And finally, one that's an international one, which will be reporting earnings, but it doesn't give a definitive time. That's going to be SoftBank, which is making tons of acquisitions, as always making acquisitions. Now, let's go back to central banks around the world. Of course, we talk about the U.S. decision last week to hold rates right where they're at, which was no surprise. Of course, in a couple of months, well, actually in about a month and a half, we'll have to look back at the U.S. Federal Reserve and see what is the next decision for December. But this week, we're not looking at the United States markets. We're going to be looking in the Southern Hemisphere. We're going down to Australia for the Reserve Bank of Australia coming out with their announcement. That's going to be happening on Monday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You notice on this screen, they're expected to go from 4.1% to 4.35, a 25 basis point increase. Now, why is this significant? Well, for the past five meetings, they have kept it right at 4.1. And you would think that if everything was okay, like the U.S. market seemed to assume, that they would just keep it there and maybe even start to taper down. But apparently the expectations are that things are getting a little bit worse down there in Australia, and therefore having to raise another 25 basis points to fight whatever economic issues they may have. Now, let's move over to another. I used to call this day Magnum PI Day, which is HPI, PPI, MPI, RPI, all coming out for the UK. That was Magnum PI Day. But there's another day that's arguably maybe even more important because of its breadth of economic data, and it has nothing to do with the United States. The rest of this week is actually relatively quiet for the United States, so I thought let's give homage to another market and go over to the UK. So let's dig into what I'm calling UK Day. I have a graphic here, the double-decker bus, and a lot of patriotism. My guess is it won't be this much fanfare going on, but I had to add a little bit of excitement. So what is UK Day, you might ask? Well, it starts Friday at 2 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, and there are a bevy of announcements coming out. It's kind of crazy how many of them are happening. First off, we start with GDP, then construction output, then goods trade balance, index of services, industrial production, manufacturing production, and business investment. That is a lot of big, heavy-hitting economic data for the UK, and of course, any of those could have a pretty significant impact on the currency valuation. Now, what's noteworthy for me anyway is that the British pound has been all over the place from a trend perspective. Let's take a peek at that chart just so we can see. If you look at this price chart over here, you notice that the longer-term picture has been kind of sideways to down. However, the intermediate picture going from mid-2022 to July of this year has been really strong, and all of a sudden we find ourselves in the midst of a shorter-term pullback and now consolidation. Now, Friday's session gave us a really big surge to the upside. Okay, great. Does that mean this downtrend is now broken? I think maybe we'll get some clarity from this economic data, and that may, in turn, give more clarity in direction to the British pound. So for all you forex traders out there, that could be a pretty exciting day to watch. That's going to be Friday at 2 a.m. Eastern Time. That, my friends, is your Monday Morning Must-Knows. We'll see you next week.